Hey guys, welcome to Y&R Daily Update YouTube channel. Today's topics: Young and the Restless spoilers reveal that Sally turned on Billy, making him extremely angry. The biggest explosion of the season was triggered not by the corporations openly confronting each other, but by a card flip from someone who seemed to be on the sidelines, Sally Spectra. She is no longer a person looking to break into the upper class. In a decisive moment, Sally becomes a whistleblower, putting the entire Newman-Abbott ecosystem in a situation where they have to choose between morality or complicity. And the first victim of that information bomb is Billy Abbott, who has just bet the future on an AI project that is outside the legal boundaries and foolishly aimed at the highest target, Victor Newman. The story begins with the fragments of data Sally has collected, an experimental AI module that can infiltrate and reason on hidden financial data, a reinforcement learning design that self-optimizes to find weaknesses in corporate internal controls, and a hardness assessment list that coincidentally matches Newman Enterprises' network of satellite companies. In theory, it's called a defense test. In reality, the way Billy configured the algorithm, the way he requested training on an obscure data set, and the email chain that used both personal addresses and temporary accounts qualifies as unauthorized penetration testing. Sally understands that if this system is run on Victor Newman, who has the most formidable legal and corporate intelligence teams, the consequences will be more than just a civil lawsuit. It could be criminal charges related to hacking, commercial espionage, and even money laundering. If simulated transactions arise, Sally didn't call Billy to negotiate. She went to Jack Abbott. For Jack, it wasn't just about money. Abacom, the net technology venture, was the hope of taking them out of the old shadow of soap and cosmetics and into the realm of digital profit margins. But to bet the family's future on an AI experiment whose first target was Victor, wasn't it like setting fire to a warehouse of volatile gasoline? In a short but chilly conversation, Sally presented the chain of evidence, access logs, simulation records, and several training documents containing data samples that couldn't be obtained through transparent means. What made Jack stiffen wasn't the technique, but the intention. The module had a predict opponent reaction inference branch specifically for Newman, meaning the developers had identified the target from the start. Jack's decision was instantaneous. He shut off the money to Abacom, activated the emergency stop clause and the nuclear deal between the partners, ordered an independent audit of the entire source code, and most importantly, he called Victoria Newman. Why Victoria? Because if Victor was a volcano, Victoria was the rare safety valve that could divert the lava flow into an orderly escape. Victoria understood Abbott's strategic language, but better than the veins that bulged on her father's forehead when provoked. Jack hired her not to use Newman to overwhelm Billy, but to build an emergency negotiating corridor, immediately stop all technical contact with Victor's system, hand over the suspect module, and let Newman oversee the deactivation process in exchange for a commitment to limit criminal escalation if there were no actual damage. While Jack and Victoria set out to minimize risk, Billy faced a chain reaction. Jack's withdrawal was like pulling the kickstand off a moving car. All contracts for personnel, computer systems, and storage services were frozen. Suppliers demanded new guarantees. Key engineers left the project, fearing liability. What was worse, without the shield of Big Brother's back, Billy became the focus of scrutiny. His calls to Sally were met with a glass-walled silence, a clear reflection of a man who had lost both his moral and business footing. The bitter climax was when the only ally still holding Billy's hand at this hour was Kane Ashp, a man who never took a straight path when a detour could be profitable. Kane saw opportunity in the ashes. If Billy's core technology was good enough, it could be laundered under a legal cover in an offshore entity, changing the application's purpose from competitor assessment to internal fraud prevention. It sounded appealing, but each of suggestions drew a new matrix of risks. Pushing the source code overseas meant inviting federal investigation. Cleaning the metadata to clean up the source was no different than destroying evidence, an act that could easily turn from a civil wrong into an obstruction of investigation. Subscribe our channel for more latest update. Billy understood, but he was adrift on a boat with only one oar. When pride is cornered, people easily mistake bait for a way out. Inside Abbott, Jack's decision was shaking. Some members feared he had let the tiger out before Victor. Others advocated cutting his losses before he was dragged into the legal quagmire. Jack chose to be transparent. He brought in an independent cybersecurity consultant, sealed all of Abbott.com's digital assets, and transferred the situation to a crisis response team co-led by Victoria. This approach both prevented Victor from creating an Abbott mastermind story and sent a goodwill signal to regulators. They were victims of a risky architecture run by a single individual, not a systematic corporate campaign. For Newman, Victor didn't need to wait for a full report to get angry. But with Victoria's early intervention, he changed his strategy. Instead of suing comprehensively, Victor set a collaboration trap, agreeing to a joint audit to determine the extent of the damage while secretly deploying a corporate counterintelligence team to trace back the gray data sources Billy used. Was there another hand at work? For Victor, an illegal game directed at him was rarely a one-time folly. It was often the tip of an iceberg with a mastermind behind it. He looked to the other side of the board, the financial channels that flowed through Chancellor Winters' common suppliers, the hidden services, consulting contracts where Kane had been a shadow. A slight prick in that could cause a series of partners to reevaluate the relationship, a deterrent without immediate court action. Sally, in the midst of the storm, faced a familiar Genoa City ethical question. Did she betray Billy? Her answer lay in how she handed over the information with verification, with lawyers, with records, and crucially with conditions that protected innocent people on the technical team. Sally wasn't making herself a hero. She was just choosing to stand on the minimum line so that the city's tech industry wouldn't slide another notch down the beat the competition with dirty code abyss. It was that attitude that kept her from becoming the next target in the chain reaction. A lesson that not everyone in this town had time to learn. The immediate impact rippled out in three directions. First, Abbott.com went into freeze, which strangely freed Jack from the pressure to keep up with Newman at all costs. Second, Newman Enterprises used the incident as a case study to upgrade its security protocols, turning the danger into an opportunity to strengthen its defenses. A familiar move for Victor. Third, the market whispered, if even Abbott couldn't manage the moral hazard of its AI project, the next tech ventures in Genoa City would have to be very safety-wired, meaning slower, more expensive, but less likely to burn down. And Billy Lost All is more than a sensational headline. He's lost his capital, his family's trust, his narrative control, and he risks losing his freedom if a deeper investigation reveals he's crossed the criminal line. Worse, he's lost his compass. His original goal to prove he can engineer something powerful enough to sway Victor has turned into a story of a wounded ego looking for a cheap win while ignoring the real consequences. Liam should have been an old lesson, but in Genoa City, people often reoffend at a higher level. Kane is a Plan B salesman, switching fields, changing shells, bypassing identification, using a third party. These offers make Billy's situation seem alive again because it's no longer a dead end. But any road paved with a layer of paint that obscures the origin of data leads to a land where the law wears thicker armor. Once the SEC or FBI sniffs out the data tampering and going abroad pattern, all doors to soft negotiations will be shut. If Billy has any real survival instincts left, they should make him stop, cooperate fully with the auditors, admit his wrongdoing, and hand over what needs to be handed over before the scenario shifts from civil negotiations to criminal charges. Behind the scenes, Victoria has become a strange fulcrum for both families. For Abbott, she is the partner who helps calm Victor down, focusing the problem on the process, not the people. For Newman, she is the one who reminds her father that the AI era is not a battle of who punches who harder, but a marathon between execution and innovation. She pushed for a framework of cross-industry collaboration. Newman's engineering team and independent consultants built a licensed red team so that from now on, if anyone wanted to test Newman's defenses, they would do so in a contracted sandbox, not on a real system with real money. Sally, closing a fiery chapter, returned to her day job, but her position was different. Subscribe our channel for more latest update. She proved that survival in Genoa City belonged not just to those with the surname Newman or Abbott, but also to those who knew how to put a period on the right foot before the story slid into darkness. As for Jack, despite facing an angry, bitter Billy, he still held firm to the principle: Abbott's business could not be built on the wet sand of victory by loophole. It was that pillar that allowed him to cooperate with Victoria without losing his identity. The shock of Y&R in the end isn't the fiery confrontation or the personal revenge Victor is known for things the audience is used to. The shock is that an AI bomb didn't explode in a way that destroyed everything. It became a fire alarm that made the powers that be line up, put up guardrails, and forced people like Billy to face the question: is he building a future, or is he just building a mirror that reflects his obsession with Victor? If it's a future, he needs rules. If it's an obsession, no matter how smart the algorithm is, it's just a stupid tool for the past mistake. And in Genoa City, where every mistake has a price, people only learn that after paying cash. Where handshakes always come with a hidden clause and every promise has an illegible footnote, Sally Spector put an end to a string of lies that Billy Abbott had built with reckless competence and an intractable obsession with power. The fateful turn began with small signs, vague consulting invoices in the name of third parties, and signed memoranda of understanding that were still priority process trial and error meetings between Billy and Kane Ash that lasted too late with the familiar excuse that it was just building a partnership foundation. Sally was tough, but not blind. She saw a web of relationships intertwined with the ambition to get rich quick and a very genuine city logic. If you can't win by the rules, then break them. She began to cross-check meeting schedules, internal emails, money flows through bridge accounts. And when the picture was complete, it revealed that the loose alliance between Billy and Kane was not just strategic coordination, but a deal that was willing to cross legal lines to take down a rival using shady means. Sally had no choice. She brought the entire discovery to Jack Abbott. Not because she wanted to humiliate Billy in front of his family, but because if the line continued, the price would be more than a few percentage points of stock or an apology. It could be a long season of investigations, subpoenas, and a permanent stain on the Abbott brand. Jack took the information in with a silence typical of someone who is used to storms. He didn't explode, didn't scold. He activated the process. First, he stopped funding for items that Billy had sole authority to approve. Then, he opened an emergency audit, blocked the data warehouses related to Kane's test, and most importantly, he initiated a call to Victoria Newman. In a world where every move has PR and legal ramifications, Jack knew that only Victoria, who understood both Newman's balancing act and Victor's defensive structure, could create a cooling corridor before things went up in flames in the press. But the call wasn't to bail Billy out. On the contrary, Jack was straightforward. Billy was looking for a way back to Victoria, using her broken emotional history and compassion as a last lifeline. And if Victoria reached out of pity, they would inadvertently fuel a repeating cycle of destruction. Jack's suggestion was interventionist. Cut off all lines of support for Billy. The feelings may remain, the memories may be many, but the calls for help had to stop or both families would slide into a battlefield where ethics were negotiated like an M&A item. Sally, having surrendered the truth, paid the price by withdrawing from 2 relationships at once. She ended her partnership with Billy and her romantic hopes. Her determination came not from bitterness, but from a realization in Genoa City: loving someone does not mean signing off on every bad decision that person makes. She chose to stick to her principles, so as not to confuse loyalty with complicity. Immediately, the aftershock spread. Jabao and Abbott's legal departments increased scrutiny of contracts involving Kane's advisory group. Associates who had been in the middle now had to choose sides. Key people on technology projects already tired of the run fast and then think approach put expansion plans on hold. On financial social media, anonymous accounts began whispering about a failed experiment, causing panic among small shareholders. All this before a mainstream headline appeared. Such was the power of gossip in the city. It preceded every shareholder meeting and could topple an entire idea with a single leaked internal text message. Subscribe our channel for more latest update. On the other side, Billy fell into a familiar deadlock. When all doors were closed, he sought the old path, Victoria. Their history was a cycle of redemption and fall. She had pulled him back from the brink of gambling, rage, and reckless decisions many times. He had also been the source of life, the spontaneous courage that made her unafraid to confront the Newman system. But that cycle, if repeated, would cease to be a deep love story and become a mechanism of codependency. Billy texted, tried to meet, talked of a misunderstanding, of a chance to start over, of I just need you to hear me out. He believed Victoria wouldn't have the heart to turn away. He believed in the miracle they had created. This time, however, Victoria enters the meeting with a different set of goals in mind. Jack's plea, Sally's evidence, and a commitment to herself that love cannot be a reason to help. Their conversation, though it doesn't need dialogue to be visual, is the moment viewers have been waiting for. Victoria doesn't deny the past, doesn't deny the times her heart beat with Billy's footsteps as he left the abyss, but she asks the difficult question, where's the line between helping and protecting a self-destruct mechanism? She reiterates Billy's short-term commitments, his start tomorrow plans that evaporated like smoke. She doesn't judge, just sets conditions. If you want to turn back, do it without her. Get a treatment program, an independent counselor, a transparent agreement with Jack and the law, accept being stripped of your decision-making power for a while, accept having someone else control your budget, your schedule, and the range of risks you're allowed to take. Only then did any talk of starting over make sense. Victoria's toughness didn't make Billy explode like it had before. Instead, it was a weariness that was evident. For the first time, he recognized the pattern. Whenever things got out of hand, he would turn to the woman who understood him best to ask for more time. But time was the only resource the community around him had exhausted. Jack, through his lawyer, offered a proposal, a formal rehabilitation plan, including a psychological evaluation, treatment for impulsive behavior, a commitment to financial independence, and a rest from all executive activities. Sally said nothing more, but her actions were the clearest message. If the road to recovery didn't begin, all doors were locked for her. Victoria, for her part, assured Jack that she wouldn't take Billy for a shortcut. She stands as a mother, a leader, and someone who has been wounded and understands that kindness, without discipline, only deepens the wound. In the larger picture, Cain Asht doesn't disappear. He hovers around the newly opened spaces, scattering half-truths. Don't confess everything. Keep some leverage. Get treatment, but don't let someone else hold the keys to the safe. It's here that the scenario branches. Either Billy listens to the familiar voice leading to another spiral of consequences, or he chooses what he rarely does, relinquish control. Those who know him know that the key to successful treatment is not a schedule or a medical facility, but a surrender of ego, an admission that he's not the right person to take the wheel of his own life right now. Jack, though in pain, is willing to facilitate. He'll take legal responsibility, set up a protective layer to keep no one in the family involved. In return, Billy takes a break from the screen. This is both metaphorical and real, a break from the executive chair, a break from the deals, and, if necessary, a break from Genoa City to cut off the trigger chain that keeps him relapsed. For Sally, the tough choice opens up a new position. She doesn't build her reputation on scandal. She builds it by drawing a red line between ambition and trickery. Savvy investors take note. In an ecosystem where many people are good at making excuses for their mistakes, someone who dares to call mistakes by their names becomes a rare asset. Still, Sally can't avoid being sniped by rumors of selling out her ex, picking sides, trading feelings for profit. But like all storms of rumors in Genoa City, time will filter out who is protecting the common future and who is protecting the mirror of self. The current end of the plot thus presents a plausible path. Jack consolidates the barrier of control, closing the loopholes that Billy and Kane once slipped through. Victoria withdraws from any personal rescue connection with Billy, taking on the role of interf family risk monitor and reminder that rebuilding requires discipline. Sally continues her work with a new reputation. Both steadfast and sober, Kane is pushed to the edge of the light, but not off the board. Subscribe our channel for more latest update. A typical opportunistic character. As for Billy, what awaits him may not be a sprint to the top, but a longer, less glamorous journey, rehabilitation, behavioral therapy, relearning controlled decision-making, and most importantly, accepting a break from the main stage. It may be temporarily off-screen in both the narrative and non-narrative sense, but for a character like Billy, this break is not the end. It is the necessary blank space so that the next words do not repeat the same mistakes. Subscribe our channel for more latest update.